Tonight on The ReidOut.
What Marjorie Taylor Greene is opposite of all American values, and whatever Kevin McCarthy has, what we know is that he has no values. He's just a power-hungry, Washington D.C.ite that will do anything, including, align himself with someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I think that's a very scary, scary combination for this country.
And Kevin McCarthy remains silent as the dangerously radical future of the Republican Party was put on lurid display over the weekend with calls for total war and white nationalism right out in the open. Plus, Elon Musk's unhinged attack on Dr. Fauci is the latest example of the new normal on Twitter, where free speech apparently means freedom to hurl unlimited abuse at anyone who disagrees with the radical right. And a new round of subpoenas are issued by the special counsel who is investigating Donald Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election. We begin the ReidOut tonight with a Park Avenue party hosted by the New York Young Republicans Club. The annual gala, eerily reminiscent of the cantina scene from Star Wars, gathered together some of the leading denizens of the radical right, including white supremacists and ultra-nationalists from the U.S. and around the world. Their president, a man named Gavin Wax, declared total war on their perceived enemies, which for you non-World War II historians was reminiscent of a phrase infamously promoted by Hitler's propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels. The 5-hour fete was a veritable who's who of white nationalism and anti-Semitism. First up was special guest Steve Bannon, the right-wing radio host who bragged that he made Breitbart.com the home of the white nationalist alt-right before joining Trump's campaign and administration. Next up, Peter Brimelow, a vocal anti-immigration zealot who once stated that whites built American culture, apparently forgetting things like jazz, rock and roll, and the blues, Tex-Mex, and other seasoned food. I could go on. And who just so happens to associate with and promote alt-right white supremacists, too. Back in 1999, he founded a website called VDare, named for Virginia Dare, the first English child born in North America, who is a deeply important symbol for white supremacists because she allegedly had, quote, pure Caucasian blood. On his website, Brimelow has argued that America's immigration policy is Adolf Hitler's posthumous revenge on America. In 2009, he wrote that the Obama administration was a, quote, minority occupation government. Now, you might remember his name because Brimelow is personal friends with Trump economic advisor and Fox Business host Larry Kudlow, who took some heat for inviting Brimelow to his birthday party. Kudlow claimed that he had no idea that his friend of 40 years has spent nearly 2 decades amplifying white supremacists. Okay, Larry? On Saturday night, Brimelow rubbed elbows with young Republicans and right-wing political figures, including former New York mayor and Trump TV lawyer Rudy Giuliani. And then there's Jack Posobiec, a mentee of Roger Stone and a Trump ally. Posobiec, whose bile blossomed on Twitter, is best known for pushing the Pizzagate lie that suggested that Democrats attended a non-existent pedophile dungeon in the basement of a popular DC pizzeria that has no basement, and that was later shot up by a right-wing activist who thought he was rescuing the non-existent children. Posobiec also blamed Russia's hack of the DNC on Seth Rich, the former Hillary Clinton campaign staffer who was killed during a robbery in Washington, D.C. His proven lie tormented Rich's family for years. More recently, he was out front in promoting the Stop the Steal hashtag that was central to fomenting the January 6th insurrection. The Times of Israel obtained a picture of Posobiec at Trump's D.C. hotel, flashing the white power symbol with key Proud Boys leader Joseph Biggs, who was indicted by the federal government for storming the Capitol. I'm leaving out hundreds of other stories about Posobiec's affiliations with neo-Nazis, Oath Keepers, and his anti-Semitic attacks against Jewish reporters. But that guy, the white power guy, was a headlining guest at Saturday's gala. Now, to be clear, these people didn't sneak in. They were invited and celebrated. Let that sink in for a second. Young Republicans of New York wanted these notorious white nationalists at their annual gala. A gala that not only showcased Posobiec, but also Donald Trump Jr., whose lone accomplishment in life is his last name, and also Marjorie Taylor, soon to be former Mrs. Greene. Her speech was the night's crown jewel. In those remarks, she denied that she or Steve Bannon helped organize the January 6th insurrection because if they had, she said, the insurrectionists would have won.
Then January 6th happens, and next thing you know, I organized the whole thing along with Steve Bannon here. And I want to tell you something, if Steve Bannon and I had organized that, we would have won. Not to mention, it would have been armed.
Ha, ha, ha. Somehow, Marge forgot to tell her fawning crowd of fellow travelers that she actually did attend a White House orchestrated event to help map out a plan for MAGA House members to object to Biden's rightful election, which just so happened to be a key component of Bannon's much-touted Green Bay sweep, with the goal of overturning the 2020 election results. Oh, and by the way, there were guns at the Capitol. Court records, trial testimony, and accounts from police officers and rioters themselves have produced evidence that multiple people brought firearms to Washington for January 6th, including an AR-15. The CrossFit QAnon congresswoman was joined at the gala by soon-to-be members, including New York Representative-elect George Santos, who attended Trump's Stop the Steal rally at the Ellipse, Mike Collins of Georgia, and Corey Mills of Florida. Her comments and some of those members' willingness to hobnob with election deniers, white nationalists, and anti-Semites should be disqualifying. But sadly, that is not the case in today's Republican Party. A recent PRRI poll showed that 65% of Republicans believe that the election was stolen from Trump. 31% think that true American patriots may have to resort to violence to get the country back on track. And nearly a quarter of Republicans think that it might be necessary to commit violence to save the country. Joining me now is Congressman Eric Swalwell of California and Michael Edison Hayden, senior investigative reporter and spokesperson for the Southern Poverty Law Center. Congressman, I do want to start with you. Marge, your colleague, claims that when she said that had she been there and had she organized the Stop the Steal insurrection, it would have won, she and Bannon. She claims that was sarcasm when the White House rebuked her for her comments. She claims she was making fun of Joe Biden and the Democrats. But she kept repeating the Second Amendment. She kept talking about the Second Amendment. Just listening to her ridiculous comments, it does kind of sound like she's saying they would have upped the violence and used the Second Amendment, which means there would have been more violence against your friends, the police officers who protected the Capitol, many of whom got hurt. What do you make of her and the fact that the man who wants to be Speaker is her partner?
She's going to be in charge in a few weeks. Yeah, Joy, Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be in charge in a few weeks because Kevin McCarthy struck a corrupt bargain with her so that he can be Speaker. And so he is going to allow under their tent somebody who has this fever dream of an armed insurrection that's successful against the U.S. Capitol. And by the way, she didn't say that she was embarrassed or disappointed or disgusted by what happened at the U.S. Capitol. If anything, she was embarrassed and disgusted that it failed and that she, if she was one of the lieutenants, would have ensured that it would have succeeded. But Kevin McCarthy stuck her because he cannot become Speaker without her. And so the fear here, the risk for our country is that we are lurching into this era where violence will be preferred over voting because the Republicans know that what they actually believe in is not popular. It doesn't win elections at the state level. It didn't earn them the Senate. They had to cheat through redistricting, which will be overturned in a few months to even narrowly win the House. And so their entire philosophy is at risk unless they bring violence into the mix. And that's what the new Republican Party is going to be defined by, is chaos and violence. And we will stand in the breach on the judiciary and oversight committees to defend what we all hold so dear.
You know, we would love to not talk about this woman. I have to be honest. She's not a serious person. She's not a serious congresswoman. But to your point, Congressman, she is going to be in charge because Kevin McCarthy has to put her in charge. And people like Matt Gaetz and some of these, you know, sort of Star Wars barroom characters, because he can't be Speaker without them. And Gaetz has already said he ain't going to support him. So it's down to her. And I just want to play for our audience, just so that you understand who this person is. Literally 2 years ago, she was a Facebook troll. There's a Facebook troll in Congress who's going to be in charge. Here she is. This is before she was a member of Congress. This is what she used to do when she wasn't doing CrossFit. Let's play that. This is cut, I believe, 4.
Q is a patriot. We know that for sure.
You are using your lobby and the money behind it and the kids to try to take away my Second Amendment rights. You don't have anything to say for yourself?
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I'm an American citizen. I pay your salary through the taxes that you collect from me through the IRS because I'm a tax-paying citizen of the United States. If you want to be a big girl, you need to get rid of your diaper and come out and be able to talk to the American citizens instead of us having to use a flap.
Congressman, I know that you take your work seriously, and I know that most members of Congress take their work seriously, but the fact that that person is a United States Congresswoman, she was literally a Facebook troll 2 years ago, and a QAnon QTuber, or whatever you call it, and now she's going to be essentially running the House of Representatives. What hell do we have ahead of us with that group and white nationalists that run with her in charge?
And Joy, remember, Republicans went to the voters and they lied. They told voters, we're going to focus on inflation, bringing down the cost of gas and groceries, by the way, which has come down already. And now what you're seeing is, no, this is what they're going to get. They're going to get Hunter Biden, defund the FBI, which Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the largest advocates for, doing everything they can, to pander to grievances around the border, but not offer any solutions. So our job has to be to show people who they are, to discredit them so they have no credibility, to defend and debunk on behalf of the Biden administration any of the lies that are told, and then, of course, to pivot to our message of putting people over politics and building on the first 2 years of the Biden agenda.